gentlemen. Just as a matter of housekeeping, welcome all. Could our mobile devices be turned to silent or turned off, please? And that. You're right, Mr. CEO. Good. We'll commence our meeting. I'll ask the CEO to read the...
All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however audio from the entire room is captured. By speaking during question time or at any time during the meeting, you consent to your voice and any comments you make being recorded. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. The reason behind recording council meetings is of course to hold us more accountable and to improve transparency of council decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, for this meeting.
Thank you. Could we be upstanding for the acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition?
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Item 3, confirmation of minutes for the ordinary council meeting 3rd of July 2018. Councillor Keeble and Councillor Pearce, thank you. Any discussion? I'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Apologies, there are nil tonight. Obituaries and congratulations from my left, Councillor Pearce. Councillor. Any others? None. Very good. Item 6. Declaration by councillors of conflict of interest. Councillor Knapstein declared a conflict of interest with respect to the Bright Autumn Festival, the Gala Day event, and was not present for assessment of those applications. And also in item 8.1.4, community grants, Councillor Knapstein declared conflict of interest with respect to the Alpine Shire Heritage Network project and was not present for assessment of that application. Are there any other declarations of conflict? No. None? Thank you. Item 7, public questions on the agenda items. There are no questions on notice, and I'll now take questions from the floor, limited to 2 questions per person. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mark Barnes from Delaney Avenue in Bright. I have 2 questions about the event funding and community grants program. First one, I note that some $265,000 is to be distributed to support events, and 15% of that, $40,000, is going to one event, namely Spartan, and a further $15,000 to support Brighter Days. $40,000 is nearly 2/3 of the total allocation to community groups for the community grants program. I would like to understand the logic behind this huge contribution to an event that has little relevance or appeal to the majority of ratepayers across the Shire, and why we're contributing $15,000 to a charity event that this year made some $400,000. That's my first question.
Mr. Bird.
Questions in that one. So just The last question, if you just repeat it again, please.
Well, the question is the logic behind the huge contribution to Spartan and $15,000 to a charity event that's made somewhere around $400,000 from memory last year or this year. So it's effectively a donation by the ratepayer to a charity event.
Yep.
Which I
So
find strange.
events bring many people to our shire, and with that brings significant economic contribution to our shire as well, which is $41 million last year, which I can see by the way you're nodding there. It comes as
We've had this discussion, Charlie.
Yes, and that's why we do it. And so for first came to council to see where they would run the event here, and it was a multi-year agreement. And Mr. Jeremy, can you refresh my memory as what their contribution was last year, economic contribution of the event? Was it $2.3 million? How much was it?
I can't remember the exact figure, but it was in that order of their contribution.
Yep.
And just to confirm, it was a 3-year agreement that we signed up to, or council signed up to, in order to attract that new event into town.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the second part was around Brighter Days.
Yep.
Is that correct? So the $15,000. Mr. Jeremy, can you provide some detail to that?
So I think what's worth
Two columns,
and one is,
Mr. Jeremy.
One is logistics support. So in the financial sponsorship this year for Brighter Days, it's zero. So previously we'd provided a financial, cash contribution, and the committee this year has decided that it's no longer appropriate to provide that. The $15,000 is logistics support, so that's essentially support. It's not cash that we give to the event, it's support that council provides. So the majority of that is through waste. So we provide a service which is assisting in dealing with the waste that's generated throughout the event. So it's not a cash that we give them, it's a support that we provide to the event. The other thing that's factored into that logistics support there is council officers' time, so council officers who provide support over the weekend, so local laws to make sure, event staff to make sure the event is being run safely and according to the event guidelines, and also the monitoring of their implementation of the traffic management plan. So that's essentially when you talk about giving them money, it's essentially a service that council's providing in order to allow that event to be run successfully in Bright.
But that would need to be provided for all events that are occurring in the town, and there were quite a lot that didn't get grants, therefore we'd have no visibility of. So are we providing logistics support to those as well? Or do we provide nothing to those and we're going to have uncontrolled events?
Sorry, is this the same question, or we're
No, sorry,
entering into debate here?
No, I'm just pursuing the answer. Trying to clarify the answer, Mr. Mayor.
So the events there are a relatively smaller number of events. The majority of the large events come through the event funding programme to gain the opportunity to have assistance provided by council.
Can I add, Will, that also not all events ask for logistics support. So while you might not see that doesn't mean they've asked for it. A lot of them don't actually ask for it because they're okay with their logistics.
They are. Okay, I guess my only comment would be that it's disappointing that we find in the second year of this event I find out that the council is providing funding.
Councillor Roper.
It's questions time. It's not for grandstanding or...
No, that's fine. No visibility of what the request was versus what was granted, nor any visibility of those who applied and were rejected or any reasons for that rejection.
So if I could comment on that, and there's a couple of parts to it. One, I'm very happy for future years to align the way that this information's been presented with the community grants, if that's a request that I think is reasonable. Secondly, when you read the report here, all the events that applied for funding this year got a level of funding. So there are no events that applied this year that are essentially on a list that didn't get funding. So what is correct, though, is that some of them applied for more funding than they have received through the panel, and that's not clear in this report. So I'm happy to take that as feedback.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes, from the floor. Sir. Oh, hang on, we've got to Mr. Arnsworth. Mr. Arnsworth. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody. Look, just quickly, I
Mr. Arnsworth, just for our records, could you just state your name?
I beg your pardon, Tony Arnsworth from number 15 Hargraves Road now. 15 now. So my rate notice told me, Darren. Look, we've all had a dialogue about this before, and I do apologise for raising it again, but I think it's important. I note that as part of the Rod Run event, where, among other things, pensioner, I'm having to contribute to waste management that it's not generated by myself or the community, as from people such as myself. Certainly, people in Myrtleford and Mount Beauty don't even get to share the opportunity to dump waste in the bins here because they're generally not here. My question is, what is council putting in place from our last discussion to recoup the cost of these events, to offset the cost of council and ratepayer expenses?
Mr. Jeremy. Mr. CEO, you have a crack at it.
So we've had much discussion about this in the past, Mr. Unsworth. We have a commercial rate which we apply to commercial properties, and that is part of what pays for these costs.
And I've put to you before, and I'll do so again, that...
Just make the statement. Okay, I'll allow the statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've put to you before, and it is part of the question, by the way, that the commercial operators who gain benefit from these events compense from a taxation point of view, as well as making a profit. The residences, such as myself, do not have that opportunity. That I say is very discriminatory. I believe that's. I hope that's part of the question, but that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, that's
I'd like to see
the
that
statement. I think we've had the discussion before with the CEO and staff, and it's one of those points where I think we're almost going to have to agree to disagree. Council take the view that the events for our Shire are important, and I think everyone does that. And the sort of commercial events, they give an air of employment and a whole number of other benefits to our community, business and private. But what we are trying to do is rein in some of that costs, and we're making the users of, or the events people, more accountable for some of these things. So we will, as part of our spend for the extra money that we get from the extra rates that would amount for services, to it rubbish removal. If we find that an event goes well above what we anticipate that we've allocated for that purpose, then an account will be sent to those to that group to say, well, we've allocated 15,000. You know, it's gone well and truly beyond that. We're going to have to bill you for the excess on this. I understand where you're coming from. I do understand that, but I think we're going to have to strike some sort of balance here.
That position, and I will continue to find a way that the community and myself can be better attended than what's happening now. I do have another question, if you might bother with me for a moment. I've just read in the local media that there's a lot of expense put towards procuring some years ago a big marquee, and it's very, very expensive to erect and so forth. And it's also my understanding that it's not very well utilised. Do you have any plans to make that economically viable in the future, or do you intend to dispose of the asset? And
that's an operational matter. I'll let Mr. Jeremy deal with that one.
So I read the same newspaper article, and I provided some input into that. So as was stated in the article, we have no intention of selling that asset at the moment. What we'd ideally like to do is have the highest possible utilisation, as with all our council assets. So we'd really encourage events to come forward and use the marquee. We recognise that there's a large cost associated with that, and that is because it does need a building permit in order to erect the marquee. But the more events that come forward to use it, the more events we can spread that cost over, so for the better for council. So at the moment, just to confirm, we have no plans to sell that, and we would encourage events to come forward and to propose the use of that marquee.
It's as though it's been a cost. The only cost is the erection of it and the storage of it. I think that's the only two aspects that the council's paid for. Otherwise, the original marquee was part of a bit of a community sweetener after a bushfire event a number of years ago.
Now, look, I believe it's a great asset, and I welcome that opportunity. I just like to see it used economically, so that again I'm not funding something which is.
We agree with you entirely on that one, Mr. Unsworth, and hopefully with the events park and the management of that with the events into the future, and we are looking at our plans to better utilise the park rather than the centre of town and
sure.
other facilities, public facilities, centralise it more on that part of infrastructure, or that marquee could be integral in part of that. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Question,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
sorry. If I may call you Tony.
Sure.
So your concern about events is that is it the inconvenience to you as a resident, or is it the perceived well, the impost is also the inconvenience, but or is it the perceived cost coming from, should I say, your rate? Your rates. Is that where I'm?
Yeah,
which part of that is it?
It's the latter part. I don't believe myself and my other, probably half the town of retirees and pensioners are getting any benefit from the events. And I'm not suggesting that the events shouldn't be here. It's a matter of how many events we have here and getting a balance between who's paying for it and who's not and who's funding it. I don't believe that my friends, my colleagues and myself should be paying for it. It's only filling the pockets of the commercial people in town, and I know nothing stays the same. Things have got to grow. It's a matter of how you manage that growth.
Right. So the converse of that, Mr. Unsworth, is that, Tony, is that I noticed over the last 10 years the house prices in Bright have increased by what, 112 or so percent? 122% over the last 10 years. So compared to other rural towns, we've seen a massive increase in the value of your properties. So this is a really fine juggling act for council, because...
Yeah, look, I understand that, but I'm not a property developer anymore.
No. This is not about being a property developer. It's actually about the asset that allow you to do what you want in the future, compared to other small country towns, okay, across the state.
Hear what you say? Yeah.
So I think the balancing act for council is trying to find somewhere in between of, what tourism looks like. Unfortunately, we live in a particularly beautiful part of Victoria, and people want to come and visit, and people want to bring events here because, of where we live.
Mr. Roper, you and I both totally agree on that, and I said before, it's a matter of balance and managing the economies of it all. I believe I'm still paying too much, and we know why we're paying too much, because we won't go there, but...
No, we do. Our rate profile is high
as we move forward. Okay.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Further questions from the floor, please. Yes, sir.
My name is Ray Dyer, and I reside at 167 Salzers Lane, Ovens. My first question is to Councillor Forsyth. I spoke to you a couple of years ago, John, if it's all right if I call you John, or Councillor Forsyth, and you spoke about the $250,000 that you were putting away each year for revegetation of old landfills. But
are we talking... Sorry, Ray. Okay, if I call you Ray.
Yeah, that's fine, John.
Are we talking about the fact that we have to maintain these old landfills for a certain period of time? Was that the conversation?
No, you spoke to me about the landfills. You said you put aside $250,000 every year to revegetate the old landfills. That was a word you said to me.
I do not recall the conversation, Ray.
Well, do you put away $250,000 every year?
Personally, no.
Hang on yourself and Councillor Forsyth.
Well, I'll
Now,
ask you, Mr Mayor.
We have a rehabilitation fund that we maintain for the rehabilitation of landfill, which
Yes.
we are obliged to maintain by the government.
And how long has that been going?
I can't recall how long the statutory, whatever that is, Mr Dyer.
Well, when are you
Next
going to
question.
start revegetating the landfills?
Thank
The
you.
Myrtleford
What's
one at
your- What's your next
Porpunka.
question, sir?
No, hang on, I haven't finished.
No, well, I have finished.
The one
that
at Mill
question.
Gully hasn't even been touched since 1990. That's when it was closed. The Morris's Lane tip opened.
Well, it is.
Depot now.
It's currently under rehabilitation. Is Porpunka, and we've been spending quite a bit of money on that under the supervision
Porpunka?
of the EPA. So.
Under rehabilitation, it's a
Yes.
Shire
Under the-
depot, Shire stockpile. That's
All
what
right.
you're using it for there. But what
Our
about the one at
sites-
Myrtleford?
Sir, our sites are registered. The EPA is monitoring it. I'm not taking any further than that.
I'd
Your
just
next
like to know
question?
where the $250,000
Well, I'm
is
not going to
going.
go into every specific
You're not?
bit.
Okay.
It's been
My next
done.
question is to the Mayor.
That's me.
That's you, yes. When I spoke about Councillor Roper, his actions when I met with him, what have you done about that? Because I'll give you an example.
No, I can't understand where you're coming from.
When I
Sir.
went and had a meeting with Councillor Roper just out here, I spoke to him for a couple of minutes and it was actually about toilets at Mount Buffalo Chalet.
So, yeah.
And he turned around and said, "Get out." Walked out in the front foyer and turned around and said to me, "If you behave yourself, you can go back in." So I went back in with him. I didn't misbehave whatsoever. And he started swearing. Now that's not the actions of a mayor, as I said to you at that meeting with Dave Barry. And you've done nothing about it.
No, I don't.
I'd like to know
I
why.
understand.
It's a straight fact. It's not,
Well,
what he
okay.
did.
If that's how you perceived it, sir, that's how we perceived it. I have had no necessity to counsel any person in relation, any councillor in relation to their behaviour in this term of council.
It was all right to spend $69,000 between
No.
councillors as mediation. Yeah. But it's all right for a mayor to swear at a meeting and kick people out.
I did say this council, sir, not previous council.
You're in charge, yes, and I know what you're like because when it comes to toilets, you still can't get them right, Mr Mayor.
Point of order.
No, I can pull...
Photographs, and I'm quite happy to show you the photographs of the toilet block.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your contribution again. Are there any further questions from the floor? None, thank you. Item 8. Presentation of reports by officers. Item 8.1.1. Mr Bird.
It's recommended that Council note the contracts approved by the CEO. As read.
Thank you. As read.
Second.
Keeble and Pearce. Thank you. Any comment?
I would say that the custom-made street furniture that we've had made in several of our recent projects looks fantastic, so I'm looking forward to seeing what this one looks like.
I agree.
Are they the same people?
Draffen.
Question on notice for that one? Yeah, thank you. Good. Righto. All those in favour? Thank you. Passed. Item 8.2.1 of the Municipal Emergency Management Plan. Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report Council is required to prepare and maintain a municipal emergency management plan to comply with the Victorian Emergency Management Acts 1986 and 2013. Council's MEMP has been updated in consultation with the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee ahead of an audit to be carried out on the 5th of September now by a panel comprising representatives from the State Emergency Service, the Department of Health and Human Services and Victoria Police. Key changes made to the document are updates following a review of the Community Emergency Risk Assessment covering the applicable risks to Alpine, addition of information relating to the 2016 census data regarding vulnerable people and vulnerabilities that Alpine may face with the Relief and Recovery Communications Plan.
So moved.
Councillor Roper, Councillor Roper, Councillor Keeble, Councillor Roper.
As read.
Councillor Keeble. Any further comment? Thank you. All those in favour? Yeah, I'll just make a comment after the vote as having chaired the Municipal Emergency Management team. Mr Bird, I'd like to pass Council's congratulations on to the officer, Ms Van Heusen, I understand, whose work that's been done between agencies and the representative of those agencies working with Ms Van Heusen to get this document prepared. So I'm reasonably confident that it will pass the appropriate audit. Item 8.2.2 event funding program. Councillor Knapstein. Could just note that Councillor Knapstein will leave the meeting for this item and 8.2 point interest. You right there, Councillor? You're hiding behind the chair.
Hey?
You're hiding behind the chair there. Okay, 8.2.2 events funding program. Is that you, Mr Jeremy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to the allocation of financial sponsorship and the provision of logistics support to events through Council's 2018-19 event funding programme.
So moved.
Councillor Roper.
Second.
Yep.
A comprehensive list has been put forward. I congratulate the people on the selection committee. Plenty of discussion earlier in the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas.
Ditto to what Councillor Roper said.
Any further comment?
Mr Mayor, could I make one more comment?
Yes, sir. Oh.
I'd like to acknowledge an error that was identified in the table, in the minutes in the agenda, which has been corrected. So we identified that the applicant for the Mount Beauty New Year's Eve celebrations was the Champagne Club Kiwa Valley, and it's actually the Mount Beauty United Cricket Club. So that will be corrected in the minutes.
Okay, that was for the what?
This was the Mount Beauty New Year's Eve celebration, so we incorrectly identified the applicant in the draft, in the agenda.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any further comment? None. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 8.2.3 Community Grants Program.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report relates to the allocation of funding through Council's 2018-19 Community Grants Programme. Background to the programme. Council's Community Grants Programme is a long-established funding programme assisting community groups and organisations to deliver community-focused projects, programmes and initiatives. The 29th of June, and we received a total of 37 applications, with a cumulative request of $157,654 in funding. An assessment panel was established which comprised 3 members of the Mount Beauty community, 1 member of the Brighton District Chamber of Commerce, 1 youth representative from Bright, a youth representative from Myrtleford, and 2 of our councillors, being Councillor Janus and Councillor Knapstein.
So moved.
Councillor Roper. Thank you. Councillor Keeble. Councillor Roper.
It's an opportunity for community groups to take advantage, and there's a vast array of, from bicycle tracks to purchase of gazebos, and I think this is a great program that we run, the community grants, and it allows small community groups to access support to do the things that they may not otherwise be able to do. As usual, we always have programs that aren't, I suppose, supported, and some of that's because in the past has been because there's been not enough detail, or perhaps an inability to actually expend the money, or there's not. And I would encourage that we contact all those groups and indicate to them why they've been unsuccessful.
Councillor Keeble.
Look, I just concur with Councillor Roper. We had a good discussion earlier with some of the questions about these projects. Not all councils do these community grants, and I like the fact that our council, we do put some, allow for small community groups to put money in. You'll see that, you know, what they ask for they don't always get. There's some funding there, and it's to help them move along with where they want to go in their directions. And I just think the council committee that was sat on and decided, it's not always easy. It's the first time I haven't been on the committee for a while, so it's not always easy, so thanks to them.
Thank you. Any further comment? None. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. And if we could ask Councillor Knapstein to resume her position in chamber, please.
In the kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah, 7:52.
7:50. Yeah. Oh.
You should have that. We're going to the kitchen.
Is that a flat white?
Sure.
Just note that Councillor Knapstein returned at 7:38 p.m. Community satisfaction survey, Ms Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The annual Community Satisfaction Survey is coordinated by Local Government Victoria, and it provides a benchmark for the majorities of councils across Victoria. Alpine Shire Council's 2018 overall performance survey results are an improvement on the 2017 survey results in almost all areas, and are significantly higher than the small rural council's average and the statewide average. More detailed analysis of the actual results is contained in the attachment to the agenda. Council's performance increased on almost all measures, with the most improved service area being Community Consult 2017 by 6 points. Alpine Shire Council's performance on 6 of the 7 core performance measures is significantly higher than the statewide and small rural group council averages as well.
So moved.
Seconded.
Who was the seconder, sorry? Oh,
Roper.
no, Councillor Forsyth.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. It's always good to get some information from these surveys, and excuse me, you can see in, if we have a look, if we scroll up to the table so everyone can see, although they've probably got the sheets in front of them there, in regards to overall performance in 2018, and the community consultation is well up there compared to other areas. And when we look at this, it doesn't mean that we sit back on our laurels and say we're doing a great job. We keep striving to do better. We know that at the moment we're working on our customer service and how we can improve that. You can see the customer service there is on par. So we know there's areas that we want to continue to strive to be better, and I commend the Shire for continuing to have that sort of culture.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth.
Sorry. Everything that Councillor Keeble has said, and bearing in mind, I think that they interviewed, so it's a pretty good sample actually. The only other thing that I'd look from this one though is, and it seems to be low across everywhere, that is overall council direction. And I'm just wondering if that's because we're not forward thinking enough in, pardon me, in actually spelling out where we're actually going or where we believe we're going. That's my only other comment on that.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Roper.
Yeah, this always makes me, this satisfaction survey has been $8,450. You see, hang on, making community decisions. The grumpiest of a lot of them again, the Kiewa Valley. Sealed local roads. Now, I think the Kiewa Valley comes up pops in this one, but we have had a lot of trouble with the Kiewa Valley Highway, which is actually a road that the council has nothing to do with. It's a Vic Roads road, and Kiewa Valley Highway. But the highest score for this area was Upper Ovens. They thought that their sealed road network was fantastic, and the Upper Ovens main sealed road network is supplied by Vic Roads. So, and overall council direction, the highest score is from Lower Ovens, and that's because Myrtleford's just got, you know, the big makeover in town, and the Kiewa Valley overall direction of council. So, I don't know how much store you put in a lot of this stuff. I know it's something we have to do, and it gives me, actually quite enjoy reading it, because it's, you know, it's one of these things we're made to do, which I really don't reckon adds a lot of value.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Any further comment? No, he's gazumped you all. No, Councillor Pearce.
I'll have to say something. And it's all very well, you know, the whole state, you know, we're all in the low 60s, 70 if we're lucky. If it was a bunch of students or something from here across the 78 shires of Victoria.
79.
Actually, I will say, we know that rural roads have been in the media, in the state media, with some rural councils where their roads are, you know, in quite need of repair, and we can see the small rural is at 49% based on this particular survey, and then ours is at 60%, which is quite the gap. And I know we have quite a good renewal project with our roads, and we're conscious of getting those done. So well done to that team for getting those reseals done, other than the Kiewa Valley Highway, which we have nothing to do with.
Any further comment? Carried. Item 8.3.2, local planning policy for bulk water extraction. Councillor, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Natalie. Ms. Cook.
The purpose of this report is to recommend that Council resolve to abandon the proposed amendment GC 85 of the Alpine Shire Council, Towong Shire Council and Indigo Shire Council planning schemes. Proposed amendment GC 85 would seek to amend the Alpine Shire Council, Towong Shire Council and Indigo Shire.
Councillor Keeble, thank you. Councillor Roper.
As read.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble.
As read.
Any further comment? Councillor, no.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, yes, certainly.
I'm really sad about this. It sticks in my craw, and I did sort of suggest, can we still lobby for that change in the legislation? It just seems to me a contradiction that we can't stop this. But yeah.
So on that side, it is unfortunate, but you know, in reality, do we open the council up to be litigated in the future? So I think your response is the correct one. Is that if council wants to make some change in this area, that we need to keep the pressure on and start lobbying for a change in the Water Act and lobbying and if that's what our communities want us to do, that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 8. Beauty Aerodrome.
This report relates to the leasing of land at the Mount Beauty Aerodrome for the purpose of erecting hangars. There are 4 leases that form part of Lot 2 of PS 705744 Embankment Drive, Mount Beauty for aircraft hangars, and those leases are also presented for signing and sealing at the appropriate stage of the council meeting.
So moved.
Councillor Keeble.
Seconded.
Who was that? Roper, thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Oh no, good. I mean, it's good to see the due diligence done with the advertisement and the leases going out. So it's all an important part of the Mount Beauty Aerodrome there. So thanks for putting that through.
Councillor Roper.
Oh, it is good. We're seeing some development. The money made from the leases goes back to the airport committee for maintenance of the airport. This is positive development and supports our long-term vision for what Mount Beauty Airport it probably should look like.
Thank you. Any further comment? All those in favour? Carried. Of appointment and authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act, Manager Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Instruments of appointment and authorisation are an important means of Council ensuring that its officers are appropriately authorised under the relevant acts and that Council administers. This report provides authorisations for Council's Manager of Planning. The recommendation is that Council exercise its powers to give appropriate authorisation to the Manager of Planning and that the instrument is signed and sealed at the appropriate stage of the meeting.
So moved.
Councillor Roper. Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Roper. All those in favour? Carried. Item 9, Assembly of Councillors.
So moved.
Councillor Keeble and Councillor Nicholas. I don't think there's any need for the discussion unless anybody wants any. All those in favour? Carried. Item 10, General Business from my right, Councillor Roper.
I haven't got any to serve my right to chime in at the end.
Very good.
I've made comment before about the upkeep of the Bright Cemetery, which is being done by an enthusiastic group, but I'd also like to put into the mix that the Arboretum is being looked after extremely well and is looking brilliant with some new plantings and everything. So I commend those people who are doing that.
Okay, very good, thank you. Councillor Forsyth?
No.
Councillor Nicholas? Councillor Keeble?
I'll raise this one. Just recently in Toowoomba South there was in Rocky Valley properties. The traffic that goes from Toowoomba South to Mount Beauty, it's a straight line obviously. On the other side, coming out of Mount Beauty in Toowoomba South up into Toowoomba, cars have to veer a little bit left around it. I notice on a dark night, and most nights are dark, when the moon's not out and it's raining, it's a very, very hard to see that island. Sorry. It's very hard to see that island, and I just wonder if do we put it that we put that in there, didn't we? That was, or was that Vic Roads? We did. I would urge someone. It's very hard to see. If you're not, we'll take a photo. I'll send it. And I'm just, yeah, that's my. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. We'll take that as operational.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce?
Well, if Councillor Roper comes up with something, I'll reserve my right hearing after that time.
We're going to bounce back and forward here.
I'd like to congratulate the volunteers and the community of Toowoomba for I suppose the stick-to-itness for the building of the shelter and the Shire's contribution and the furniture with the new barbecue and the water bubbler. It actually looks pretty good. Got that up and going. I take my hat off to you. You've done a terrific job, and to the Shire, it looks terrific.
No, it does, and I'm just wondering whether the north-facing side could have some lattice on it, like the south-facing side, to stop the rain from coming in from where people sit. That's one comment I've had, because the roof is nice and high.
Well, perhaps we have one of those. What do they call those see-through screens, Tony?
We could have a see-through screen.
Cafe blind.
The cafe blind. Here we up and down.
We can run a movie on it at night time when it's dark.
We probably need an occupational health and safety policy to have it.
Give almost a point of order.
You know, ask Darryl.
No, Item 11, motions for which notice have previously been given. There are nil. And item 12, reception and reading of petitions. There are nil. Documents for sealing, item 13. Councillor Keeble. Councillor Pearce. Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, we just need to vote on that. All those in favour for that? Carried. There being no full close at 7:54 p.m. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending, and safe journeys home.